Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Let me get myself set up on Instagram. I think. Happy podcast morning. There we are. All right. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and some tips to help you guys on your fitness, fat loss, or health journey. And today I want to be talking about metabolic flexibility, mostly because it's been a buzzword that I've kind of heard a lot of people talking about recently. And I thought it would be a good idea to kind of give you guys the specifics on what matters and what doesn't when it comes to metabolic flexibility, so that you guys can get your head out of the weeds and into the things that you need to be doing in order to see results for yourself, whether your goals are to lose body fat, whether you're trying to improve your health, or you're trying to perform better in the gym. Because those are pretty much the main three goals that we have. Hey, I want to be fit and healthy, I'm trying to lose weight, or I want to be able to perform better. And metabolic flexibility is something that can be helpful to understand, but it can also be nuanced and can become a distraction to focusing on the things that you guys really should be focusing on. So my goal today is that you leave this episode, or you leave this live, if you're watching live on Instagram or YouTube, or you're watching the replay, with knowing exactly what matters most for you in your own fitness journey. So first and foremost, let's talk a lot about like what exactly metabolic flexibility actually is. And don't mind me because I am sipping on my delicious coffee as always. Metabolic flexibility is basically just essentially talking about the way that your body can transition between burning fats to burning carbs and then burning body fats. And I say that because a lot of people say fats and carbs. And there's a big misconception about what burning fat actually means. I think whenever we hear the word fat, we associate fat with body fat. And we have to remember that we take in dietary fat in our diet, and we also have body fat stored on our body. Those are two different substrates. And then obviously we have carbohydrates as well. Our body can also be metabolically flexible and even convert protein into energy. So essentially metabolic flexibility is essentially just how your body is switching between the different energy sources. So whether it's pulling energy from carbs, fats, body fat, or even protein or muscle, which is not what we want, right? Mm-hmm. So your body already knows how to do this. It's our body is designed to have these mechanisms built in that teach it how to switch what kind of substrate it's burning. However, there's a lot of people out there that are telling you that, well, you should just be like lowering carbs. And this is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about that matters most for those of you guys out there looking to improve your blood biomarkers, looking to look better, looking to feel better in the gym. Let's start by talking about the fuel hierarchy. Okay, so we have these different substrates, right? We've got carbs, we've got dietary fat, we've got protein, we've got muscle, and then we've got body fat, right? Carbs are not the enemy. And a lot of people will tell you that we need to lower our carb intake, but carbs are actually your body's preferred source of energy, especially around times of higher stress, whether it's higher stress in life or higher stress in the gym. Whenever we have a higher cortisol response, our body is looking for carbohydrates for more energy. This is why you'll often get carb cravings in high stress in high stress situations. If you don't have you might have a little bit of an appetite. So some people will get like a little bit of an appetite suppressant effect from stress, but typically afterward they get triggered by a stress response that creates a need for more carbohydrates or sugar. Now, fats, dietary fats are typically going to be not your body's preferred source of energy, but we can use fats for energy. Fats' role in the body is essentially for cell protection and hormones. We can convert fats into fuel if our body needs to. And typically in lower intensities, we might be burning more fat as a fuel substance because we don't require as much energy turnover. Believe it or not, protein is also used as a fuel source. So those of you guys that do follow a low carb diet or more of a carnivore based diet, and you're not experiencing any negative effects on your training, it's because your body has now conditioned to burn protein as a fuel source. It's converting that into glucose. It's not ideal, but it is possible. We just want to make sure there's enough protein going in to protect muscle tissue, because muscle tissue can also become an energy source if needed to be. So it's why it's so important that we are always looking at ensuring that we're getting the right amount of calories overall, the right balance of macronutrients based on what our body needs, enough micronutrients to keep all of our systems running appropriately. And the main thing is looking at our movement and our training throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the years, because building lean muscle tissue is what's going to keep you the most metabolically flexible. And it's where people focus so much on the diet and the things that don't really matter, and they're not looking at the overall big picture. And the real thing is, it's like, why are we so concerned about being metabolically flexible? If you know that your body is conditioned to do this, burning fats for carbs, what is the real purpose? Why are people telling you that this matters? It really does not matter that much what substrates your body is burning between carbs and fats. What matters most is, what are your overall goals? If your goal is you want to lose body fat, you need to burn stored body fat. In order for you to burn stored body fat, whether you are metabolically flexible and you're burning carbs or dietary fat doesn't fucking matter, because you still have to be eating less calories overall in order to get into stored body fat. I'm going to go more into the nuance of this stuff, but I want to talk about one main thing. A lot of people will tell you that by going low carb, you are making yourself more metabolically flexible. If you're low carb, now you're able to burn fat for fuel, right? And they are true, right? If your body's getting energy from carbohydrates and you're getting energy from dietary fats, and when both of those tanks are empty, your body's going to look for protein or muscle. And if you're getting enough protein in your strength training, your body's going to be like, I need that protein to preserve that. So then it's going to tap into body fat, right? So we look at overall calories are how our body taps into body fat. So, but as the low carb people will say, if you cut out carbs, your body is going to burn dietary fat for fuel, because that's the only fuel source you're giving it. And then, only then, if you put yourself into a calorie deficit, will your body start to burn body fat, okay? You can be in a calorie deficit and be eating carbs though too. So it doesn't matter which one you're burning. Now, here's where the low carb school of people will backfire, okay? They say by removing carbs, you are making yourself more metabolically flexible. But this couldn't be further from the truth. And here's why. If you are no longer taking in carbohydrates, you are no longer flexing between burning carbohydrates and burning fat. You are now only relying on fat as your energy source. And this is how it backfires. A lot of people that go on low carb diets or they cut out carbohydrates, what happens? They end up regaining the weight. Why? Because as they reintroduce carbs to their diet, their body is no longer sensitive. You actually become more insulin resistant when you remove carbohydrates from your diet, because your body is not utilizing those. This is where it's so important to understand how to make yourself more metabolically flexible and more insulin sensitive. We will get into that, okay? Low carb people will also tell you that carbohydrates spike your insulin levels, and they're not wrong. Carbohydrates do spike your insulin levels, but guess what? So does protein, and so does fat. In order for you to understand why this is relevant, you have to understand the role of insulin in your body. Insulin is not just there to bring your blood sugar down. That is only one purpose for insulin in your body. Insulin is what helps shuttle nutrients where they need to go. It helps break down fats into essential fatty acids and protein into amino acids. It's taking the calories you're taking in, and it's a hormone that's signaling your body how to break them down and how to store them. Yes, insulin is a storage hormone. It's also an anabolic hormone. That's how your body builds muscle, because it gets protein into the muscle cells. Insulin is not the enemy. It is simply a response to food intake, period, not just carbohydrates. Now, higher calorie meals are going to spike your insulin levels more, whether it's from carbs, fat, or protein. If you're eating a larger calorie meal, more insulin has to be released in order to digest that food. If those calories are also coming more from carbs and fats, your body will have a larger insulin response, because that also is impacting your blood sugar. So insulin has to do the act of also not just shuttling nutrients, but also bringing blood sugar down. So yes, carbs do have the fastest spike, but the dose response is important. 100 calories worth of carbs is 25 carbs, and it might spike my insulin a little bit. It might not spike my insulin levels as much, though, as a 700 calorie meal that's full of carbs, fat, and fats. Like if I'm having a 700 calorie bomb food, yeah, that's going to spike my insulin a lot more than those 100 or 25 grams of carbs. So it's important to understand that insulin's not the problem. It's a necessary hormone that needs to be released in order for your body to break down and utilize food. You want to be insulin sensitive. So when we're talking about metabolic flexibility, what a lot of people are trying to do is make you more insulin sensitive. But by removing carbohydrates, you're not doing that. You're removing the wrong substrate and you're making yourself more metabolically inflexible, okay? So overall, combination of foods and quality or quantity is what matters more than the actual single ingredient. So I'm not demonizing carbs or fats here. I'm giving you the facts on what matters. It's overall calorie intake. And we'll talk more about calories as well, because I think even calories can get to be like, oh, well, all I should do is focus on my calories and that's all that matters. No, not necessarily. We need to look at food quality. We need micronutrients. We need macronutrient breakdown. But the main thing is it's not the insulin. It's not the calorie. It's not the carbs. It's not the fats. It's looking at everything. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of real things. And this is going into the real world, real food application here. Whether you're low carb or not, it's the sourcing of your calories that matter. If following a low carb diet makes it easier for you to control calorie intake and puts you into a calorie deficit to lose body fat, then that might be the right thing for you. However, somebody else can get just as good of results being on a lower fat and a little bit of a moderate to a higher carb diet and be just as successful. The main thing is looking at your diet, not just from a calorie and a macronutrient perspective, but also from a food quality perspective. If you are just getting your carbohydrates from gummy bears and rice cakes, you're not getting lasting energy and you're not getting a lot of nutrients. Food quality matters. It's also the exact same thing, though, if you're following a low carb diet. If all of your fats are coming from butter and low carb keto treats, and you're not getting in any fiber, you're not getting in, any of the monounsaturated fats from nuts and seeds and oils and things like that. You're getting all that saturated fat. You're not getting enough nutrients. It does matter what types of foods you're consuming for your health. Not so much for body composition, however, for keeping you consistent with your nutrition, because if you don't have enough nutrients on board, it will trigger other hormones that spike your appetite or that lower your energy levels to make you not feel as good. So the quality of your food matters more. The balance of your macronutrients matter more. And also looking at what your lifestyle is like. Okay, so let's talk about what really matters for improving your blood biomarkers. So maybe you're worried about like type 2 diabetes. Maybe you're worried about heart stuff. Maybe you're worried about other health concerns. Maybe you're worried about cancer. Maybe you just want to look good naked. Okay, all of this stuff. Maybe you want to perform better. It all comes down to the exact same thing. What does your lifestyle say about your metabolic health? It's not just your food, okay? How much are you moving throughout the day? People that are very insulin resistant, and I like to call it weight loss resistant, and it seems like nothing that they can do works, don't need to be given a shit about carbs versus fat for burning. They need to be getting up and going for more walks in their day. Getting up and making movement a piece of their day. Not just doing a 5-minute CrossFit workout and being like, oh, I got my quota for the day. Okay. However, a 5-minute CrossFit workout at high intensity does help your body learn how to utilize carbohydrates better. It is training your body. So when we talk about being metabolically flexible, your movement matters so much more than what you're consuming in your diet. That's how your body is learning how to be metabolically flexible. Movement is medicine. So if you're doing CrossFit 5 to 6 days a week, Your body is tapping into learning how to use glycogen for fuel. Okay. If you're getting up throughout the day and you're moving throughout the day and you're trying to be active and you're not sitting all the day and you're getting enough sleep and all that stuff, your body is tapping into using fat for fuel. All right. If you are controlling your calories in a calorie deficit and you're moving more and you're lifting weights and you're making sure that you're prioritizing building muscle tissue, you're going to be losing body fat. You're going to be making yourself more metabolically flexible, more insulin sensitive, and you're going to be improving your health and blood biomarkers. I think the other thing that I want to talk about with this episode, which is so important, is because it's all connected. People focus so much on dietary changes in terms of what they're eating being the thing that caused the change in blood biomarkers or the changing in body fat. I removed carbs and I lost weight. I removed carbs and I got more insulin sensitive. I, did this and I improved my blood biomarkers. Believe it or not, okay, when it comes to health numbers, even hormones, because obviously type 2 diabetes is a hormone, it's metabolic dysfunction. All of that stuff, it's not the actual diet that causes the change. The diet is it's the catalyst for the change. The change comes when you have less body fat. When you have less body fat on your body fat in itself is inflammatory if you have too much. You need a little bit. Too much becomes inflammatory. Too much causes imbalances with hormones. Too much makes your insulin levels go crazy. You need to realize that it's not the diet that changed the blood biomarkers. It's not the diet that did that. It's the change in body fat percentage. And even for somebody that might be, so you see those people, they're quote unquote skinny fat. They're not fat. They don't look fat. They're like under muscled. Okay. They don't have a lot of body fat on them. They're at a healthy weight, but they don't have enough muscle. You're still not optimized from a body fat percentage. You need more muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is the number one thing you guys should all be focusing on if you want to be worried about being metabolically flexible, if you want to make sure that you are or you are keeping yourself insulin sensitive, if you want to be healthy. In fact, I even read a study recently talking about how muscle is the biggest thing that helps prevent cancer. It is the biggest cancer protector because muscle tissue is so expensive, and oftentimes cancer grows because it's being fed. And when your body's feeding muscle, it can't feed cancer. You are less likely to develop those types of things if you have muscle tissue. And I know that a lot of you guys aren't looking at stuff like this. You guys are looking at I just want to be able to look good. I want to be able to feel good. You don't need to be stressing about metabolic flexibility. You don't. Nobody, I'm going to be honest, nobody needs to be worried about what kind of substrate they're burning, carbs versus fats. It doesn't fucking matter. And anybody selling you programs that tells you that this is the goal of the program, no. Your overall goal should be how is this program getting me moving more, getting me building lean muscle tissue? How is my diet getting my calories controlled, getting enough micronutrients, getting the right balance of macronutrients in my diet for me to feel good, enough energy for my training, the right types of foods for me to feel good. If you like a little bit more fat in your diet, you want to have a little bit more fat, go a little bit lower carb. It's all personalized. It all comes down to where you are. And you cannot look at blanket statements and these fitness gurus or these people telling you that you got to follow one thing because none of it matters. I have clients that work with me that are on a low carb diet because that's their preference. And I'm okay with that. If that's how they want to eat and it's sustainable to them, go for it. They've been eating that way for years. When they came to me, they were stuck with their weight. It's okay. We're going to work low carb, but we're going to do it because what's the goal? We got to get your calories under control. However, sometimes it's telling somebody, I know that you've fallen into this trap of this low carb lifestyle being good for you, but you've been plateaued in the gym. Your body's not building muscle the way that it could. Maybe adding a little bit of carbs in and your performance in the gym goes up. So it's that's why it's so important to realize that you got to stop looking past the stuff that really matters. And I'm going to end on this. So this is a little bit of a rant right now. Nobody wants to focus on calories. Everybody's like, I don't want to count calories. Calories don't matter. They would rather feel productive learning more about which kind of substrate they're burning, because the simple thing is the hard thing. I had a client last week who he's been starting with me. He was like, I don't know why my weight's not down this week. I said, oh, he's like, I had Chipotle a lot. So, okay. I look at his food diary. I see what he logged. He said, you had a Chipotle bowl. It was like rice, chicken, beans, and sour cream. Like, you didn't have anything else on it? He's like, nope, that was it. Just a sour cream. I said, all right, did you have anything with it? Oh yeah, I had the chips. Like, well, you didn't log the chips. Okay. Nobody wants to focus on the calories. But if he had logged those calories, I showed him that the 600 calorie meal that he logged was actually about 1,500 calories. This is the thing that matters most. You don't want to focus on the simple things, but the simple things are actually what drives the biggest results. I made this post this morning on my Instagram story. I don't follow any kind of fancy rowing progressions. I just follow rowing progressions. And guess what? The simple things, just little pacing changes, they produce results. We all get so conditioned to focus on all of the little nuanced stuff. The little nuanced stuff usually is not what you need. Now, there are some times that there are specific things in a person's diet that we need to look at, but it's usually not things like metabolic flexibility. It's like, okay, you're hitting your macronutrients and you're not losing weight, but all of your carbs are coming from processed foods. Like, maybe we need to work on getting more whole grains, more fruits and vegetables in your diet. Maybe you jumped into something like macro tracking when what you really needed to focus on first and foremost is, where should your macros be coming from? Looking at food quality. I do believe in flexible dieting. I do want my clients to be able to incorporate whatever types of foods they want in their diet. But the majority of the food needs to be coming from the right sources. Maybe you're getting in good quality carbs, but you're not getting in enough vegetables. Maybe you're eating clean, but you're not getting in enough protein. Maybe you have a misconception of how much protein you're getting in. You're getting entirely too much protein. There's so many things that matter most. Maybe you're not eating enough earlier in the day, and then you're eating too much at night and you're binging. Like, it's knowing that there's so many things that happen, and we all are so conditioned to look at like one snapshot. Like, I'm perfect for one day. I've been good for 1 week. Your body does not change in 1 week. I wish it did. Your body is the result of the years and years. Your metabolic rate right now, if we want to talk about metabolism, is not based on what you did this week. It's the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years. Like, it's all compounding. So it's like, we can go and try and look at all. It's the whole stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Do you want to keep stepping over dollars just to make yourself a few cents richer? Or do you want to pick up the dollars and make some progress? All right. So, like, main thing today is metabolic flexibility isn't really something that you can control with your diet. You can control it more with how you're moving. All right. That means that you should be resistance training to build lean muscle. You should be getting some high intensity training in to help your body utilize carbohydrates. You should be getting in lots of low intensity training, steps throughout the day. Oh, steps are so boring, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but they work. Okay. Oh my gosh, I am going off on all the tangents today. I got to tell you, again, people focus so much on food. Everybody's like, American food is so unhealthy now. It's not this. It wasn't like this 20 years ago or 40. Bullshit. I've had the same Kraft macaroni and cheese in my grocery store since I was a kid. Okay. Like, the food isn't changing. You know what is changing? We are fucking lazy. We are overworked. I shouldn't say, that's a little bit of a, what is it? It's kind of dumb. We are lazy. We are overworked. We are burned out. We have no time. We have no energy. And it makes us lazy with our food. That's what I wanted to say. Nobody goes to the grocery store. Nobody wants to cook. 20 years ago, you had to walk at the grocery store. That actually is daily activity. That's part of your non-exercise activity. Nowadays, people just call up Instacart, and their delivery comes to their door. You don't want to cook? Call DoorDash. You don't even have to drive. You don't have to even walk to your car and drive and reach your hand through the drive-through window. You just have to sit and wait for DoorDash to deliver to you. Like, everything is entirely too convenient. People are just moving entirely too little throughout their day. COVID, everybody started working at home. Now nobody leaves their house. I get it. I don't leave my house a lot of days. I stay home and work. But this is the real problem, right? Everybody's like, oh, it's this American food. It's the food dyes. It's this and that. Like, no, we're all just freaking sitting and doing nothing, or sitting all day and stressing all the time. All right. So like, focus on what matters most. If I'm going to leave y'all with anything today before I check the comments, because I'm sure I probably have some comments in there because I haven't been looking at it, is, when we talk about nutrition really is simple. It starts off with what you're eating. 80% of your diet should be mostly animal-based lean proteins, unless you're vegan and vegetarian, which we can talk about that in a different episode. Fruits and vegetables, starchy vegetables, some complex carbohydrates, which are going to come from whole grains, natural fats from things like olive oil, coconut oil found in your animal-based products, those types of things, and some flavor. What are you using to flavor it? Okay. So those are like the main components of a healthy diet, right? The other 20%, it might be a couple of cookies. It might be, whatever. That's what matters most for your base of diet. Okay. Then it's looking at your overall calories and your protein intake. All right. So I should say, take a step back. Building balanced meals should really come back. You should be able to say, all right, on my plate, I've got some protein, I've got some veggies, I've got some carbs, I got a little bit of fat, I got a little bit of flavor, right? That's the second basics, right? A lot of people did not grow up eating that way. I did not grow up eating that way. Once you have that mastered, now it's like, all right, how are my protein and calorie intake? I'm getting enough protein, I'm getting enough calories. Where's my macronutrients at? Like where does my body tend to, most people will fall into about the 30 to 40-ish% carbs. I should say more like 35 to 45% carbs, depending on where your protein's at, 20 to 30% fat. Like it's looking balanced on your plate. You got some balance there. And then maybe if you're an athlete, you have to pack a little bit more carbs on. Maybe you're not an athlete. Maybe you have to pull back a little bit on carbs or fats based on what your preference is. All right. That's really how simple nutrition is. All the hormones, all of the other stuff, all of that shit can be fixed if you focus on moving more, training to build muscle, and dialing in your nutrition in a simplistic way. You don't need a bunch of bullshit. You don't need special plans. Now one thing that I will talk about, when it comes to metabolism, because I do talk a lot about metabolic mapping. It's something that I help educate my clients on, because it comes down to identifying in that situation of all of those things I talked about, where their body right now has adapted over the last 5, 10, 15 years of their life. What outputs are we getting from the inputs you're putting in? Somebody that's not very active, doesn't work out very much, doesn't have a lot of muscle, they're going to be a slower oxidizer. Okay, knowing where you're at on this end of the metabolism spectrum is helpful, but this isn't some gimmicky plan I'm selling you. It's just something that I do with my clients to help them understand, like, hey, here's why this isn't working for you. It's not about fats versus carbs, though. It's like, okay, sometimes if you want to diet on more calories, it's a matter of like, you need to be moving more. Okay. And sometimes, like, if you're moving too much and you're trying to diet on too little calories, you need to be eating a little bit more so you can stay consistent. Like, this is all the stuff that I cover. When we talk about metabolism, that's the stuff that matters more. Understanding where your metabolic rate is and what matters most for you. The metabolic flexibility stuff doesn't really matter that much. So now that I said that, let me just pop over to the comments, see if I have any questions or anything like that. LDY. Good morning, Holly. I did a BMR test at DexFit. It was 1,000 calories less than the calculator, which is closer to the deficit where I see. Okay. So when it comes to BMR testing via DexFit or anything like that, I don't even really love any of the calculators. I don't love the calculators via DEXA, via online calculators, or any of that stuff. Nothing will be the best telltale of where your calories should be more than what you're currently taking in and how your body is responding to that. So, and I actually just had this call with talk with a client yesterday. Maintaining your weight at the amount of calories you're consuming now does not necessarily mean that it's maintenance. It just means that that's where your body's adapted to. However, some people often overshoot how many calories they're burning outside of BMR, Larry. So like if your BMR says, 12 or 1300, and you have been telling yourself that you're burning 1,000 calories in your CrossFit workout and you're not, that might be an issue. But the main thing that I always do with all of my clients is we work together to figure out where their actual calorie needs are. And your BMR probably is pretty accurate with the DEXA, but that doesn't matter as much as how many calories you're adding based on what you're considering in the other factors. So your total daily energy expenditure, because your non-exercise activity, your exercise activity, and your thermic effective feeding are going to have a big impact on your calorie needs for a deficit. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but hopefully it did. And if you're comparing, just so you know, I would say this too, Larry, because you said your BMR test at DexaFit, it was 1,000 calories less than the calculators. So your BMR is different than the calories that you're going to see calculated online. Your BMR is only going to be your basal metabolic rate, where a lot of the calculators online are also factoring in all the other things that impact your total daily energy expenditure. So that would make sense. So like, for instance, my BMR might be 1,400, but my calorie needs are over 3,000. So that's something that you can consider. Let me look over on Instagram. I see a lot of people on here. Does anybody have any questions about this? I'm talking about metabolic flexibility. I'm talking about metabolism. And I actually am going to be doing a virtual event coming up here in a couple of weeks talking about metabolic adaptation, which I think is what's more important for you guys to understand. But does anybody have any questions on what I've been talking about today in terms of metabolic flexibility? Yeah, Larry, if you weren't comparing the TDEE, I would honestly want to see what you were comparing then. And I see that you're driving. That's crazy to believe to me that I don't know what calculator you were using online, but for a calculator to be that off on your BMR is the calculation probably was not right. That would not make sense at all for your energy or your BMR to be that far off. And that's why it's also, guys, if you're using little tangent, if you're using any kind of online calculator to try and figure out where your bodies should be for total daily energy expenditure, because I'm talking today about how calories matter most, right? So I guess I should leave you with that. If you're looking for the most accurate way to figure out where your calorie needs are, you get two options. You can just send me a message, MacroRx, and I have my own personal calculator that I use using the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation, along with some other feedback that I'll read from your assessment. But the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation is always going to be the most accurate for most active individuals. I would use that one more than anything. So whenever you're looking one up, type in online calculator for TDEE using Mifflin-St. Jeor. That's always going to be the right one. If you just DM me, I can also send you a couple of ones that I know that you can find online. But that's going to be the most accurate when it comes to determining your calorie needs. Again, those are just like a baseline. You need to also look at other factors that are going to influence your energy needs. Chronically being underfed, you'll find that when you see these numbers, you're like, oh, there's no way I could eat that much food. I'd end up freaking 5 pounds heavier in a week because body does adapt. Vice versa, it can significantly undershoot in lean individuals like myself. If I put my numbers into an online calculator, it'll tell me to eat like 2,200 calories a day. I'd be starving if I ate that much food. So it's all case by case. Christina says, this may be too big a topic, but I'm curious about how far you eat before your workout plays into what your body uses for fuel during a workout. Okay, again, this is one of those things that like we're kind of stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Let's talk about the purpose of a pre-workout meal. The purpose of a pre-workout meal is to make sure that you are feeling energized for your training so that you can produce the best intensity out of it. So some people are like, oh, you should train fasted to be burning fat. That's really not the case. Our body is not usually burning the food that you're consuming right before a workout. All that is doing is topping off and regulating your blood sugar levels and topping off your glycogen stores. Your body is always going to burn stored glycogen. Glycogen is stored from the calories that you've consumed over the last 24 to 48 hours that has not been used up yet. That's what you're burning in your workout. Now, when we're talking about what fuel source your body is using, it's going to depend on the intensity of your workout. Higher intensity training is going to pull more carbohydrates. Lower intensity training will pull more fat. Dietary fat. Remember, we're not pulling body fat. We're talking substrates. If you want to burn body fat, it doesn't even matter what you're eating before you're working out. That's not even. Body fat is a matter of like, you got to be in a calorie deficit. There's no other way around it. But when it comes to that, what matters most is what type of training you're doing. And we are always going to be switching. Your body is going to switch based on what's available. And that's how your body gets more metabolically flexible. But again, if you have fat loss goals, you don't need to worry about whether or not you're burning carbs or fats. You're better off tapping off your glycogen stores if you have intense training, because that will help create more of a calorie deficit. Why? Because you can work out harder. Remember, the calorie equation isn't just one side. We have calories in and we have calories expended. So if our calorie expenditure goes up, it's going to mean that we're burning more calories, even without eating less. That's why sometimes when we talk about, that's why I'm going to have that talk about metabolic adaptation, because sometimes when you eat a little bit more, you burn a little bit more. And sometimes we burn more than the amount we added in, which means that we end up being in more of a calorie deficit. Hopefully that answered your question, Christina. I know everyone say I take calories too low when trying to lose weight, gonna lose muscle, but just don't see that. To move scale, I have to be under 1,800 calories and I'm on my feet 11,000 steps plus lift. I know I can't be the only person in the world like this. So Larry, this just might be a metabolic adaptation for you, along with, let's just be real honest, okay? I worked with you in the past. I think that a lot of people, when they go on a low calorie diet, they're looking at the days that they're on the low calorie diet, but not looking at the days they might have cheat days. So remember that calorie deficits isn't just about a snapshot. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 days. If you're eating 1,800 calories a day, 5 days a week, but then like 2 days a week, you're eating 3,500 calories a day. Okay, let me just do some math here. 1,800 calories a day times 5 plus 3,500 times 2, that would be 16,000 calories in a week. If I divide that by 7, your average calorie intake is actually around 2,285, which isn't that low for somebody in a fat loss phase. So this is where you have to realize that your strategy might be for you. What works best is being a little bit more dialed in the majority of the week and having a little bit of flexibility a couple of days where you don't have to be so stressed about food, because the overall net average is right where you need it to be. Again, this is where what matters most is what works for the individual. And I'm sure I probably hit the nail on the head with that one. Or you're just extremely focused on getting really, really, really fast results. At the end of the day, Larry, let me ask you this too. I know you've lost weight in the past. Clearly, if you're doing this again, you regained it, right? So what also could be happening is you're doing something looking for quick results, but you're not ever actually learning how to build yourself back up to maintain it. And that's why the only thing that's working for you is 1,800 calories, because your body is now adapted to that. And in order for you to fix that, you've got to go through the hardest part of any fat loss journey is, how do I transition to maintaining it? Maintenance is work, guys. Maintenance is work. It's more work than the fat loss phase, because guess what? It's harder. It's harder to be consistent with your nutrition when you're no longer chasing fat loss, because that's when you're tired of worrying about it. You're tired of stressing about food. You want to be free, right? But that's where you need it the most. All right. Any other questions? No worries, Kristen or Christina. This is good stuff, guys. I'm really enjoying talking about this today. Any other questions on metabolism, calorie deficits? And Larry, you are definitely not the only person in the world like this, I promise. Larry, that's what I'm here for. Y'all see my cat? He's coming to say hello. Larry, I think for you, that's actually pretty good. You lost 60, gained 10 back, but you need to lose another 40. I think that's pretty good. I think the next 40 is going to be harder than the first 60, though. So I'm always here to offer some guidance up to you as well. It's been a long time since we've talked. All right. Do you have any suggestions for substitutes for oh my God, of course, Christina, because that's what I'm doing right now. You see my coffee mug here. Oh, man. Last sip. All right. Coffee. Coffee can be a calorie bomb, but it also doesn't have to be. The main thing, Christina, is I've actually learned that most people, if you actually just stay a little bit flexible with your food, if you're open to tracking your food, you can definitely incorporate the creamer into your coffee. Most people don't have to change anything. I use unsweetened almond milk, and I shop TJ Maxx because they have a bunch of assortments of the skinny syrups. And right now my favorite flavor is this salted peanut butter cookie. It's delicious. So my coffee routine is I use around 60 grams of almond milk, 60 to 70-ish. And then I'll put about 30 grams of that in there. I use a milk frother with my coffee to froth it up. And I add a little bit of fat-free whipped cream on top, which is only like 10 calories, and it's delicious. But you can also, there's tons of like the sugar-free creamers out there. If you like things a little bit sweet, the main thing is like knowing how creamy you like your coffee. If you want more creaminess, then you're going to want to use a lower calorie milk product like almond milk or something like that, because it does cut back on the amount of, you could use more of it for less calories. Some people like to add protein to their coffee, which can add a little bit of creaminess. Just make sure that you have a good tasting protein. I personally, though, don't add protein to my coffee. It tastes just fine the way that I do it, and I mix up the flavors. But my coffee is maybe, I want to call it maybe 30-ish calories, maybe 40 calories. So I normally do 2 cups a day. Hopefully that's helpful, though. I love my coffee. I love my coffee. Go get back to work, Larry. Do you measure, weigh those skinny syrups you use? I could see myself going a little crazy on those. I do, but mostly just because I want to make sure I know how much I'm putting in. Not necessarily because I'm worried about the calories in it. I don't even track them. It's just like, because I don't know. I know how much I like to make it taste good. So by just putting it on the scale, I know that I'm getting the right amount to make it taste good. So usually about 30-ish grams is what I'll use in that. For like, if I'm using it for like my oatmeal or something, probably only like 10 or 12. But that's the only reason I would measure it. I don't measure them. That's awesome. I'm using sugar-free creamer and a splash of whole milk for creaminess, but I'm going to try the syrup. It's so good. If you have a TJ Maxx near you, go down where like the all of the like they have like a food aisle like near the kitchen stuff. And you can typically find some. The brands that I like, there's a brand that I don't like, the Tarani brand. I don't like the Tarani brand. It just tastes very artificial to me. But the skinny syrups, the Mateo brand, and I think this one's called like this one's called Zerolicious. So those are my go-to. Some people like using the monk fruit sweetener, but I like those. Those are great. They're delicious. No problem, Christina. Any other nutrition questions, guys? Can you guys believe we are 6 months into the freaking year 2025? 6 months. In 6 months from now, I'm not going to be that coach. Like, in 6 months from now, you're going to be exactly where you were 6 months ago. I really don't believe in that. I believe in people. Everybody's going to wake up one morning and have that moment of like, hey, it's time to change. And if that's you today and you're like, it's time to change, you can reach out to me. But I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to fear monger you into being like, oh, it's time for you to realize that 6 months from now, you could be your best self. You could be your best self right now, but just by saying, I'm listening to Cheryl talk about this stuff today. All right. All right, guys. Well, if nothing else is popping up, I'm going to hop off here. You guys are always awesome. I love talking to everybody. If anybody ever has any questions, if you guys have any podcast episodes that you want help with or anything like that, let me know. We'll be talking a little bit about 4th of July. I'm going to do a second episode this week because it is a big holiday weekend. And it's funny because I used to do so much more for 4th of July. Now I feel like everybody's like, I don't even think I'm doing anything. And I'm like, man, it used to be like the best holiday for me. Fireworks and all kinds of fun stuff. But anyways, I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Go get after your workouts, get after your day. And if you need any help with anything, or if you got any value out of this episode, please let me know. If you're watching the replay, if you're watching it on podcast, or if you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts or whatnot, definitely shoot over some comments my way. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.